Okay, so let's start. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this Open Charge Alliance webinar about the OCPP certification program. Today we will explain how we improved the certification program and what this means for you. My name is Hanna Kolotzek. I am the Open Charge Alliance Communication Officer and I will be hosting this webinar today. If you have any questions for us, please post them in the question box, which you can find on the right side of the webinar panel. And we will have a Q&A in the end of the session, and we will try to answer all your questions. So let me introduce you to Paul Klapwijk. He's our speaker for today. He's part of the Open Charge Alliance, and he's also the chair of the Compliance Working Group. And he improved the certification program in the past months, and he will tell you more about it during this webinar. So Paul, if you are ready, you can start off by introducing yourself and by sharing your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Hanna. Yes, I assume that my slides are visible at this moment, just for the check. Welcome everybody. My name is Paul Klapwijk. Indeed, I'm the chair of the Compliance Working Group, which is the working group within the Open Charge Alliance that's responsible for the certification program. And today we'll give you an update on the new certification program, all the improvements that we have done, mostly due to the experiences we have had over the last years. And as you probably have noticed, is that the OCPP certification is becoming more and more recommended and sometimes even mandated by governments and subsidy programs. And we want to keep up with that, to keep it on the one hand practical, affordable, but also secure. For this reason, we have introduced a number of improvements, a number of extensions to the certification program, and today I will be guiding you through those. So first off is that the entire certification program is not new. So this has been open since November 2019, when we started off with OCPP 1.6 certification for charging stations and CSMSs. Where we had the full certificates, subset certificates, and a separate security certificate for the security white paper, which was introduced after the 1.6 specification in 2018. And later when we finalized OCPP 2.0.1, we started the certification program for that version of the specification as well, and opened in June for the core and advanced security profiles. So the core part, which you always need to do, and the advanced security part, where the third security profile is separately certified. And now in February, so at the end of this month, we will also open for the additional profiles. So you see here in the picture the different logos for the different parts of the certification. So if you are core certified, which you see on the right side of the picture, that will be the icon for that. And then based on the additional profiles that you have certified, we introduced the yellow to purple additions on the logo. So you see from right to left, you see the core and then the advanced security. The L stands for local authorization list management, the smart charging, advanced device management, reservations, advanced user interface, and ISO 50118. And those last profiles, those are new as of the end of February. And those will be available then for certification for charging stations, CSMSs, and charging station software stacks. And come back to the software stack part later in more detail. Well, today I'll be discussing a lot of information. First thing we always tell people is that all the information about the certification program is on our website. So what you see here is the website. When you click on certification, you can see that we have separate sections for OCPP 1.6 and OCPP 2.0.1 certification. We have a list of certified products, and we have the overview of the test laboratories. When you go for certification, the tests will be done by an external neutral OCA designated test lab. And we have a number of those around the world that can help you with your certification tests. So when you go to our website, you will see that these are the labs. We currently have 8 locations around the world. So we have 3 in the US, 2 at DECRA and 1 at DNV. We have 2 in Europe, one by DNV, one by DECRA in Arnhem, and then we have 2 in Korea, KSJ and KTC, and we have 1 in Singapore at DNV. So these are the test certification labs, and if you go for certification, you can actually go to one of these labs. The contact details are on our website, and there you can start off your certification run. And at the end of the certification run, the test report will be delivered to OCA, and the OCA will eventually give out a certificate to you. There's a number of steps in between. Those are all specified in the certification procedure that was mentioned on the website as well. So when you are certified, so you will receive a digital certificate, digital PDF certificate, which we will also put on the website. So every certificate that we give out by the labs are on our list of certified products. You see here a screenshot. This is just the actual website where you can also search for it, and yeah, you can find both 1.6 and 201. Now it's of course quite an extensive specification, specifically OCPP 2.1. So when you look at one of the certificates, you will see that there's quite a lot of information on there. So before continuing to the presentation, just wanted to quickly show you what a current certificate looks like. So here you have an example, one of the recent ones, where we have the on the left side you see the front page, where on the top you see the OCPP core certified, and in this case also the advanced security logo. You see the lab that has performed the test, and then after this front page you have an abstract of the test report, where you see a lot of information about not only the test lab and the product, but also on the exact functionalities that are implemented. So it starts off with the overview of the profiles that are certified. In this case, we are currently only open for core and advanced security, so those are both tested and passed in this case. But as of the end of February, the other profiles that are on the list are now also available for certification. So there will be new certificates that also include one of those. Besides the besides the product definition, our certification is of course based on specific features. So on the one hand, we have the actual product designation, so the name of the product and the software version, so the OCPP software version, which as of the new certification program for charging station will be the firmware version. So there was sometimes for chargers a bit of confusion, so we'll transform that to a firmware version. And the other thing is the hardware feature set. So these are the hardware features that are important and define the product. So those are the ones that are also relevant for the OCPP behavior. So here you see the list on the top left. So you see the whether it has a detachable or fixed cable, whether it's an AC or DC charger, and the number of EVSEs and the number of RFID readers. This is the complete set for now. As of the new certification program, there will be a few added also for the additional profiles. For example, for the advanced user interface certification profile, we will now also have the number of displays, for example, on the certificate as part of the hardware feature set. Now, when you look at a certificate, when two chargers are certified, specifically for chargers, there's quite a lot of things that are optional. So as you can see in this table, you see the header optional features, and you see quite a long list of optional features. And that is, of course, due to the fact that OCPP 2.1 is quite a large specification, suitable for small chargers up to very large DC chargers. So for that reason, there's a lot of functionality we cannot require, or we do not require from every charger. So you can see here for each of the optional features that has been identified, whether they are implemented or not. These are all available, of course, in the documentation surrounding the certification program, where you can see to which use case or which part of the specification those optional features relate. And for, as you can see, for the core profile, there's quite a lot. For the additional profiles, the number of these optional features is quite limited, because these are in itself already optional. So if a vendor decides to implement one of these optional profiles, like advanced security or smart charging, then most of the functionality is required. So that allows you to compare charges in the sense that you can see for each of them exactly what is being tested and what's supported. But yeah, it also means that if you have two different certificates, then the difference can still be quite large. But of course, the certification program has been designed to make sure that everything is interoperable. And of course, this only means interoperable for the functionality that overlaps. So that is the starting point of the certification program. In addition, we have some additional settings which are needed for the test setup to be completed. So, for example, minimum and maximum values of certain values, those are also provided and also printed on the certificate. So if somebody wants to make sure that they have the behavior which was certified, they can also take over these settings. And finally, we have a performance measurement, which we always do for a product, where we basically measure the performance of a charger. So on the top left, you see the table where the performance as stated by the vendor is printed. And below there, you see the list of actual measured values as during the certification test run. Then on the final page, you see the statement of approval where both the vendor and the test lab sign off. So basically what we have is a test report consisting of a part which is delivered by the vendor, for example, the performance measurements, but also the optional features that are supported or not. And of course, the test laboratory that basically signs off on the fact that the tests have been correctly performed. Besides that, of course, there's an OCA validation of each certificate, but for the certificate itself, you will see that the statement of approval contains the signatures of the vendor and the test lab. A long introduction about a certificate. The reason I wanted to walk through it is that it is we've seen more and more cases where it's we see some fraud-like activities concerning certificates. So as you see in the bottom of this certificate, you can always see that the authenticity can be verified at the openchargescience.org website. And the reason is we always point you to this is that we have seen fraud with certificates. So on the one hand, we have seen a police investigation related to certificates where certificates were required for a subsidy program, where there is a discussion whether a product which participated was certified or not. And on the other hand, recently we were contacted by a company that came up with a certificate which they sent to us, and they said, hey, we cannot find it on your website. Is this a real one? And when we looked at it, we found out that it wasn't. So that's the one on the right-hand side. So in order to prevent this, we first want to point out to you that, as mentioned in the certificate bottom footer, there's always a list of certificates on our website. So you can see here, this is the screenshot again. You see here each certificate we give out, we list on the website. So if you have the organization name, you can just find it here in the list. In case you cannot find it here, you can always contact us. It could theoretically be a very recent certificate which is not on the website, but we can of course always check for you. But you can basically use this as the source of truth for the certification program. Besides this, we've also introduced halfway through last year the generation of certificates based on the test report, which we also digitally sign. So at the top of the page, which has the certified product list, you have a link to a verification website. And then on this verification website, it is explained that if you have a certificate in the new style, so the ones those are as of last year, you can actually use your PDF tool to verify that it was signed by the OCA. So on our website, you can find the Trusted OCA certificate, and using that, you can actually verify that it was signed by us and thus a real certificate. Now, these are, of course, for us were some sort of shocking things. So also when improving the certification program, we had to take into account that we need to, on the one hand, make it more affordable for the vendor and for the companies using OCPP. On the other hand, we also want to make sure that it is still secure. So what we have done, we've together with the market, we've looked into the practical experience of the last years and how we could improve those. So together we came up with a list, and that is the 9 points that you see here on the list. I will go over them one by one. Some of those I have separate slides, so I will postpone the details until later. But yeah, you can see for each of those, you can see either it's related to security or related to costs. And the reason is, as mentioned earlier, we wanted to improve the certification program by making it practical, cost effective, but also making it as secure as possible to make sure that you can trust the certificate and you can trust reports coming from us. So the first thing we did as an improvement is to actually print the firmware image has on the OCPP certificate. So as of the end of the month, certificates will be having that field there, and they will actually, during the firmware installation, take the hash of the firmware that is actually installed on the certificate. So we'll start off by installing the firmware, so you know that the entire run has been done with this firmware image, which you can then, if needed, you could trace back once you have a certificate and you have a firmware, you can see whether they belong together. The second improvement we did is not related to security, but is really related to the cost effectiveness and to reducing the number of certifications needed, and that is to introduce the concept of an OCPP product family. The idea is explained a little bit later, but the idea is that similar products sometimes are currently are required to certify for each of the product family members. But in the future, we will have some rules what we consider to be a product family, and those together can be on one certificate. As mentioned, we'll come back to that later in the presentation. The third improvement we have came up with is the recertification of an updated software version. So we have a new tool. It was originally introduced, the OCPP new style, so the cloud version was introduced for the OCPP 2.0.1 specification test cases, but we now also included OCPP 1.6, and this tool allows us to test using an API. Now, this API testing actually doesn't test the entire product. So if you have a charging station, if you use the API, you will not actually be swiping an RFID card. So for the first certification, we'll still require a test lab to do like a full run with an actual charger, but and also do all the manual actions with swiping cards or tapping the screen, etc. But when you have a product which is certified, in the future, the recertification of an updated software version is allowed to be done with an API. And the reasoning behind this, of course, that in the nowadays a lot of companies release firmware versions or software versions every week or every month, and it's of course impossible to keep up with all those versions with certification by a test lab. So of course it's not required by us to recertify, but of course if you have a government funding program that requires it, then recertification of your software can at least be done more efficiently, because it saves the test lab a lot of time, and that will also reduce the costs of the actual certification run. Then the fourth improvement is it's called the support for a vendor declaration of conformance. What we have introduced in the OCTT, the new test tool, as of February, end of the month, we will have a vendor declaration conformance, which is basically a test report based on a PIX. So currently, when you go for certification, you fill in this PIX form, which you can, on the one hand, define your product, and the other hand will serve partially as a test report. This new improvement to the test tool, or so the extension to the test tool, means that we have, when you include the PIX in the test tool, you can actually run all the tests sequentially in one uninterrupted run, and then you have the option of getting a vendor declaration conformance from the tool, which is basically a signed copy of a test report from the test tool, allowing you to prove that you have done this run with your system as a vendor. On the one hand, this is of course allows you to be more cost effective in the sense that you don't need an external test lab to do the testing. On the other hand, we are of course also make sure that we include as many security measures as possible to make sure that it's a complete and uninterrupted run that concerns the actual product you're testing. There is of course always a sort of a caveat in that as long as the vendor is doing this itself, you're of course never sure that what actually has happened. So we will try to make sure that you have, for example, make it an uninterrupted run so that there's no option of installing intermediate versions or bug fixing on the go. But still, it's not observed by a neutral test lab. So yeah, there are still some differences there. I will come back to that also a little bit later in my presentation. This vendor declaration of conformance is also a different document than the certificate. So I will also show that in a minute. The next improvement concerns the certification of a software stack for OCPP 1.6. In the beginning of the presentation, I already mentioned the software stacks as one of the things that are available for certification. This was actually introduced for OCPP 2.0.1 as of the start of the certification program in June 2023. It was not available yet for OCPP 1.6 charging station software stacks. But now that we also have the OCTT used for OCPP 1.6 instead of 2.1 only, we also now have the option of certifying a software stack. So as there might be companies interested, we also included that now in the certification program for 1.6. Then we have another more security related improvement, which is adding a limited access router to the test setup. What we will do for the certification of a charger or a software stack is to, but primarily for a charging station, is to add a specific device to the test setup, making sure that all communication goes directly to the OCPP test tool. We've seen in the past that architectures are made up where the actual device picks a proprietary standard and then a cloud component forwards this to the test tool. But for certification, we, if you want to have a device OCPP certified, we will require you to use this limited access router so that the actual device that is certified is also the device speaking the OCPP standard and not some external software component which is not part of what's on the certificate. So for that reason, we added this limited access router to the test setup for, on the one hand, making sure that it's communicating directly. It also enables us to verify that there's might be additional communication ports. Now, this is something that is out of scope of the conformance testing itself, but we will ask vendors as of the new certification program to list all the additional communication ports besides OCPP on the certificate. And the reason is that we want to make buyers of a product aware that there might be additional communication ports that could be secure or not secure, but at least we will sort of start the discussion. For OCPP, we have the conformance test and also the security of OCPP is tested. So there we can say that we have tested the actual security of this communication channel. For the other communication ports, we want to just inform the buyer that these are part of this product. Then we still have the randomization of the test sequence. As part of the certification program and also of the vendor declaration of conformance, we will start randomizing the sequence of test cases to make sure that there's not a sort of a stub, so that it's not actually a charger, but it's the stub that's doing the responding to the OCPP messages. For that reason, we want to randomize it on the one hand, but also have some specific test cases in a specific order. And the reason for that is, as you can imagine, is that, for example, if you have a charger that can upgrade the security, but at a certain point you cannot downgrade anymore, then you must make sure that all test cases that needed the lower security profile have to be run first. So everything that is irreversible must come first before we continue with the rest of the test cases. So the randomization will take this into account. So you will actually be providing your picks to the test tool. It will, based on this, determine the list of test cases which you need to run, apply the randomization algorithm, and then run these test cases in that order. And then the final improvement on this list is to determining the OCPP software version running during testing. That is actually related to the OCPP software version, or as of the new certification program for charging stations, this will be the firmware version. It is printed on the certificate, but we will now also verify that the charger is also reporting that this OCPP software version is the one running. So in the communication of a charger, of a charging station software stack, in the boot messages, it will actually report the version it is using. So we will make sure that this matches what is on the certificate and on the test reports that the vendor has gets from the certification. So the idea is that it will actually be very strict there. So these are the improvements. As mentioned, a few are up for a bit of more explanation, and that also has to do with the question that we hear a lot of terms related to OCPP saying it's compliant or operational, OCPP ready. So we just wanted to explain a bit what you can do to verify whether an OCPP implementation is compliant. So what you can see here is one perspective from the vendor and the perspective from a buyer or perhaps a funding provider partner that uses an implementation. Is that for the vendor, you get the first option is to do it yourself, so you can do your own testing. And for a buyer, this means that you can trust the vendor's word and reputation that the actual tests have been done correctly by this vendor. Now, originally, we only had the last column. So we had the OCPP certification, which basically means that there's an independent verification by a test lab. And of course, the OCA checking the report, etc. So we know that for a vendor, this means you can verify that you're compliant. And on the other hand, it would mean for a buyer, you can actually get the certificate from your vendor, and you can also verify this on our website, as mentioned, also with the digital signature to make sure that this is an actual certificate from us, and you can see that it's an actual certified implementation. Now, the newly introduced vendor declaration of conformance is basically it's a test report from the test tool, which is sort of like an intermediate thing in between. So on the one hand, it has the digital signature of the test tool, so it means that you can see that it's an actual report. So you can actually sort of have this intermediate way that you know that it is done by the same test tool done by that is used for the certification program. Does this mean that those are the same? So the vendor declaration conformance and OCPP certification? Oh no, there's still a difference there. So what you see here is on the left side, you see a example of a vendor declaration of conformance. It's only the front page, but it will have similar pages as the normal certificate with all the optional features, etc. It will actually also include a complete list of all the test cases that have been performed. But as you can see, there's only one signature on it, so it's a declaration by only the vendor. Whereas on the right side, you see the OCPP certificate, which is, as you can see, we have checked it as the OCA. And it also has the statement of approval containing the signature of not only the vendor, but also of the test lab that has performed an independent test. So on the left side, vendor only, right side, you see that 3 independent companies have looked at it, or at least 2, the vendor and of course the test lab and OCA. So this is something new in the release at the end of the month. So for those of you participating in the beta release will already have seen some functionalities being introduced for running a complete, doing a complete run. So also the PIX import functionality, so the functionality of selecting test cases based on the PIX filled in, is part of this, and that at a certain point will be introduced with using the API to fully test everything. Now, this vendor declaration performance is also one that has to be done automatically tested, so that's a full run that cannot be interrupted, whereas a certificate is done by a test lab, and that could be interrupted by, for example, if it's end of the day. So there's quite some differences there. Now, this vendor declaration of conformance is also used for our new product families. So what we will do is introduce product families as a part of the certification program. And what the idea is that vendor will basically indicate what is the family. So they have a number of devices which they have defined as a product family based on the rules from the certification procedure. And what the idea is that the vendor will list all the products and include a vendor declaration of conformance report for each of those products. Then the test lab will identify the representative product. So one of the products will still need to be tested by the test lab, and that has to be the one that is like the most functionality, basically. That is the one that will be tested by the test lab, and the other products will be included based on the review of the vendor declaration of conformance. What does it mean to have a product family? Well, the first thing is that they must share the same firmware version. They have to have the same hardware feature set that is relevant for the OCPP behavior, which I mentioned in the beginning. The hardware feature set, like the number of EVSEs and the number of displays and the AC or DC. They have to have the same configuration in the PICs as the representative product. We do have a number of exceptions. Those are all listed in the certification procedures, but in essence, it has to be sort of the same range of functionalities. It has to be the same number of certification profiles, so it's not going to be like a subset or a superset of the representative product. It has to be like the same functionality, and as mentioned, there has to be a vendor declaration conformance, meaning that it is successfully tested by the vendor itself. Based on that, so the test lab will, on the one hand, choose the representative product, and that is one that will be actually certification tested, and all the other for all the other products, the vendor declaration of conformance, so the test reports will be checked by the lab, and based on that, a complete report will go to OCA, and we will generate a certificate that lists all the additional products as a product family on the certificate. Of course, this means that we still have the certificate as we have it currently. So you will still have the front page with all the information about the representative product, and then at the end you will have this separate list of the additional products that are belonging to the family. So that's, I think, a good improvement, and as mentioned also, I hope that this will be, on the one hand, practical, on the other hand, secure, and of course, cost effective for everybody participating in the certification program. And as mentioned, we will now do this for all profiles. So over the last months, we've also worked very hard, not only on introducing those new changes, but also to open the certification program. So as of the end of this month, we'll have an OCTT release, and then we'll also open the OCPP 2.0.1 certification for all the profiles. So where we only have core and advanced security now, the additional ones will now then also be available for your certification. Now this has actually taken some time. It's also been a lot of hard work, and for those of you not familiar with the process, we actually have quite some moving parts, so to speak. On the one hand, we have the OCPP 2.0.1 specification. Of course, this is fixed, although we sometimes add some clarifications there via errata. And then we have, of course, the OCPP 2.0.1 test cases that also are part of the specification, so also subject to errata, but also there we have clarifications and corrections. We have the test tool, which we've implemented, and we've worked with a number of implementations for charging stations, software stacks, and also charging station management systems to test everything in the tool and to make sure that it matches the implementations and that it matches what's in the test tool and what's in the test case, and that it also adheres to the specification. So this is an operation which we have done also with the opening of the certification program for core and advanced security, and the similar way of working has been done now for the remaining profiles. So we have 6 implementations, and we of course are very grateful that we able to work with actual people from and implementations from the industry to work towards the opening. So wanted to mention them as well. They are almost there. So we are in the process of finalizing certification testing. So yeah, those are the first companies that are expected to receive their certificates shortly. So it's Kevrit from Korea, ITE from Spain, Vattenfall, IO Charger, Trialog, and Ubitricity. The top 3 are CSMSs, and the bottom 3 are IO Charger and Ubitricity have an actual charger. Trialog has a charging station software stack. So that covers for us all the products that you can have here. So big thanks to those helping us to get this opening of the certification program finalized at the end of this month. Big thanks to you. Then I have explained quite a lot, I think, today. Now this is not only available in this webinar, but also, of course, everything we have in the new certification program is also documented in on our website. So we already uploaded the OCPP certification procedure and test plan documents for both 1.6 and 2.1. So you can already have a look on the website. So if you go to the certification and then for each of the OCPP versions, we have a separate page where you will find the documentation here where you have the regular stuff as well. Important to mention here is that the certification procedure is always the same. So for OCPP 1.6 and 2.1, we have the same certification procedure. For the test procedure and test plan, we have separate documents for each of the versions. So if you are interested and not already part of the compliance working group, these are now also publicly available, not only for OCA members, but also for everybody that's interested in certification as well. So, and if you've read everything and think you're ready, then you can contact one of our labs. So again, you see them here. So we hope that it covers your region, and then you can participate in the certification program and get yourself on the website. If you look at this list of improvements and also have new ideas, we actually have the certification program governed by the compliance working group. As mentioned by Hannah in the beginning, I'm the chair of the working group. We together come to these improvements and to these and how to implement those. So if you join us, then of course you can also join the meetings and discuss the improvements and perhaps come up with new ones. So yeah, please, if you want, join the OCA, and then of course you can also participate in the technical working groups, not only the compliance ones, but yeah, if you join, you can collaborate together and make sure we have a great certification program for the entire market. And by that, I think I've covered everything I wanted to say today. So I would like to give it back to Hannah again.
Yes, thank you for presenting, Paul. We will now start to have a look at the questions we got from our participants. So let's see. We got a question from Jan, who asked if the chargers must be shipped to the test laboratory in every case. So is it really necessary?
Yes, at this point, yes. So we only in very specific cases companies can ask for on-site testing, and that will be then handled by the OCA to whether or not that is allowed. But in principle, yes, there's always on-site testing at a test lab for So you shipped the charger to the test lab, and then testing will take place there. Then they have their own tools, their own environment. So that's the most practical. For CSMSs, of course, these are usually cloud systems, so those tests will be done also at the test lab by the tester from the test lab, but there's of course no shipping there. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Then we got a question about, let's see, about image size. So it's quite a long question, so I will read it out. We expect a quite large firmware image size. We're not using vendor data, vendor delta update mechanism. So do we have any updates on that? So like the person who asked this question also said that it is a fact that most chargers are based on Linux. So therefore, the firmware image will get large, or it will not include all elements. So there are chargers on the market which are such a collection of different components from different vendors that the full image will be multiple gigabytes. So possibly not even upgradable by classic OCPP firmware updates. So can you answer this question?
Well, from the certification point of view, we use the OCPP software firmware upgrade mechanism. That's also what we validate and certify. If there's of course improvements that can be made there, then I would invite you to join the OCA and also primarily the technology working group, because they basically decide on how the actual implementation of OCPP is done. From the compliance perspective, we only verify the specification. So if it's something can be done more practical, feel free to bring it to the technology working group, and you can see whether we can improve on this, and then that will in the future also might be part of the compliance.
Yeah, all right. Are the costs for testing stated by OCA? So can you tell a little bit more about that?
Okay, so we are currently discussing the costs. So we, of course, will have those ready by the end of the month. So we will publish them on our website. We currently do not have those readily available. We are looking at a similar structure as we have with maximum prices, of course, so that we have sort of the vendor knows what's at least the maximum for a successful run.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then let's get into another question. Is there a cloud-based testing tool available? So to certify the application of a CSMS OCPP implementation?
Yes. So in the for OCPP 1.6 certification, we originally used the old OCPP toolkit that has been decommissioned now. So that was actually a tool which was running on your own laptop. The new OCT, the new OCPP tool test tool, is actually indeed a cloud-based tool. So it's a cloud-based tool both for CSMS as well as for charging station testing. So you can just, when you log on, you get the choice whether you're testing a charger or a CSMS, and everything will be done from the cloud. Yeah.
All right. The next question is, will all certificates remain valid when they are updated with product family members?
Yeah, that's something not explicitly mentioned, but the idea, as mentioned, is that we have when you go to the lab, you have the representative product and you have the list of family members. It is also possible afterwards for a period of 3 months, I think, to include even more family members. So what we will do, we will update the certificate, and of course, at every point in time, the certificate is valid, and we will not retract it. So we will not sort of make it invalid. The only thing is that we will, of course, always keep the most recent version with all the certificates and all the family members on there on the website, but the old ones will still be valid. So those are signed, and that will be so there's no time period, and they will also not be invalidated once they are replaced by anyone.
All right. Then we got a question about the SW stack. So what about the SW stack if it is tested and certified? And then if it is implemented in a charger, shall it be separately tested again?
Yes, that is a question, good question. So yes, the answer to that one is yes. So what we have indeed is a charging station software stack, which is just the software part of everything, and a charging station, which is the physical device. And indeed, if you have a certified software stack, you will, if you implement it in a charger, we will still need to get fully certified for the separate charger. Of course, this will probably go easier, and it will probably be you'll probably succeed in one run, but you do need to go through certification, because otherwise the scope would be different of what we have on the software stacks and on the chargers. So we cannot make any statements about something we didn't test. We don't know, of course, not know in advance whether it was integrated correctly. So for that reason, yeah, you have to go to a separate certification for the actual charger once the stack is integrated.
All right. Okay. So I think that we have answered most of your questions. So Paul, again, thank you for presenting today. Do you have some final remarks for us to wrap up this webinar?
Well, not really. So I hope that everything was clear. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can either contact us via info@openchargealliance.org, or if you have very specific certification-related questions, you can also contact us at certification@openchargealliance.org. And we're, of course, free to will try to answer all your questions and help you in your certification runs.
All right. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And we hope to see you again soon at one of our webinars or live events. So if you want to stay up to date, you can check our event calendar on our website, or you can follow us on LinkedIn. So for now, I will close the session. Thank you for joining us, and have a good day.